Psychedelics are illegal not because a loving government is concerned that you may jump out of a third-story window. Psychedelics are illegal because they dissolve opinion structures and culturally laid down models of behavior and information processing. They open you up to the possibility that everything you know is wrong.
We don't need new laws that control our consciousness and rigidly place it in a prison.
Cognitive liberty. The fact that as adults, if we're not hurting anybody else, we should have the right to explore the contours of our own consciousness without any mediation or legislation on the part of somebody else.
Reject authority. Authority is a lie.
Or is it perception?
Information is power, but we have to seize the opportunity.
Hey, Mike Brancatelli here. You're listening to Micadelic. Thanks for joining the show. Got a bonus episode. Who knows? It's just another episode. I released one a couple days ago, and now here is a new one. So 2 back-to-back episodes for you guys. And in this episode, we're going to talk about what happened to Alex Jones of Infowars.com and the news surrounding that. And the implications of that, the ramifications of that, what this means in the broader context of things, where our world is heading, and what is happening to humanity and our minds. This is a majorly important issue for me. This is the core of my belief system, the core of Micadelic's philosophy here on this podcast. I started this show because I felt very strongly in the ideas of freedom, in the idea of cognitive liberty, to be very specific, the right to do what you will with your own body, mind, soul, spirit, consciousness, whatever, as long as you are causing no harm to anybody else, as long as you are not infringing upon anybody else's rights to do the same, to live their life in a free way as well. And I think this is really the basis for all of humanity, and I really do feel, I have faith in humanity. I feel that if we could really respect and honor this moral principle of, do not infringe on other people's rights, do not steal from people, and do not hurt people, do not cause harm to people, that we could really live in a much more intelligent world where we can collaborate together. And as Bill Hicks says, create a rocket ship and explore the cosmos together as one, in love, in community, in connection. However, we have not gotten over our species' flaws of wanting to dominate and control and to create fear, to manipulate people, to suppress people, to oppress people, and to enslave people. And this is an evolutionary hurdle that we need to come out of, because if we don't, we will be living in a world that resembles as what I talked about on the last show, which is this Orwell, this mishmash of this Orwellian, Huxleyan, dystopian world, and we're already to some degree living in that. So a couple days ago, what happened was, and I'm a little behind because I am in Lima, Peru right now. I'm abroad. And what happened was I saw an article released by The Guardian saying that Apple, YouTube, which is Google, Spotify, and Facebook decided to deplatform Alex Jones. Right-wing conspiracy theorist nutjob Alex Jones. Okay? I thought that this was something to do with an attack on fake news, they were using the justification for his removal as hate speech. And I've listened to Alex Jones. I've watched his show. I think he's hilarious. I think he's eccentric, to say the least. I think he's I actually think that, Alex Jones uses a lot of the same tactics that the mainstream media uses. He knows that fear sells. He knows the sort of look and the style of his show sort of mimics one of like a Fox News or a CNN with the graphics and all that kind of stuff. He knows how to, he built up an empire from the ground up. He used to just be some guy on like a cable access, public access show. And he has, since built up this massive empire where he has millions and millions of followers. And, you don't get millions and millions of followers for no reason. You don't get millions and millions of followers if people aren't detecting that there's some level of truth to what you're saying. Now, I'm not saying that he, of course, he gets a lot of things wrong, and he's completely unhinged and a character and very easy to make fun of, very easy to discredit. Very easy to just say, this guy's a wackadoo, throw him in a loony bin, get him the hell out of here. But I do think that, and as my buddy Dave Smith said on Part of the Problem, I do think that if all of the information that has been kept hidden from us was revealed tomorrow, if every single classified document, top secret document, every single hidden truth was uncovered, I do think that the dial of truth would lean more towards the side of Alex Jones than would the mainstream media, and that's a fact. And that's a fact because he is very critical of the global power elite, the consolidation of the state's power, and in a way, this deplatforming, this removal of him from these major platforms, these monopoly level platforms, is a way to take out the competition, and take out the criticism of the establishment, the man who is shaking the status quo. Now, like I said, think what you want about Alex Jones, right? He's crazy, he's wrong, he's angry, he's scary, whatever it is, whatever it may be, and those may be accurate things to say, because, like I said, I don't agree with him at all about a lot of things. I think that, but there's no question that he has built up quite the network. He has built up quite the platform, and he's built up quite the audience. And you don't just do that if you're just a complete lunatic. You don't do that if you're not actually communicating something that resonates with people where they feel important. And one of the things that I do agree with Alex Jones is that he is critical of the power system. He gets things wrong? Yes. He's weird? Yes. He's eccentric? Yeah. But like I said, think what you want about Alex Jones. But if you think that Alex Jones represents more of a danger to society than the power structures that are executing their authority in order to be the sole arbiters of truth, then we are headed down a very dark and scary road in this country and around the world. There is a massive, massive war happening right now, and it is a war on dissent. It is a war on the vocal minority of diverse ideas and opinions that are poking holes at the establishment power structure and the status quo. It's a war on the freedom of speech, essentially. You are allowed to say things as long as they fall into line with what we deem to be acceptable. So there's a war happening, and by effect, what happens is this war on freedom of speech actually infects your mind, because the more and more people, we're seeing it happen right now in schools and in college campuses and everywhere. People are being brainwashed, and their minds are being twisted to question their very thoughts, to question their very their very own way of interpreting the world. And once you fall into that trap of second guessing your own intuition, second guessing your own thoughts, you are deceiving your own body's radio receptor to interpret the world around you, to interpret your version of the truth, your perspective, your subjective experience. You're betraying that, and you are now causing a great deal of conflict within yourself, which could manifest through different kinds of diseases or anxiety or depression or any form, because you are in conflict with your body, you're in conflict with your mind, you're questioning your own thoughts, you're not sure what you can say and what you can't say, and that leads to great stress and trauma, and you feel unable to communicate the truth as the world as you see it, and your life no longer becomes about your life and your point of view and what you think and what you have to say. And that's the biggest criminal action that could be taken against a human being, in my opinion. And once that happens, you give yourself away to larger entities that want you to conform to their version of reality. They are creating a specific version of reality that these elite power structures, they come together and they say, what will work out best for our interests? What will be the best way to make sure that we are able to stay in power and make money and flourish and have our party keep going? And the best way to do that is to take out dissenters, take out people that are threats to the status quo, to your establishment power, and you make deals and you do favors for other people that are in big positions of power, and that's the way that it goes. And if you can silence dissent, if you can hide truth, if you can make it illegal for people to express their opinions, if you can use something such as hate speech, which is preposterous, ridiculous. There's no such thing. That you can then almost get away with whatever you want. You can say these people are being hateful, these people are being mean, and we can't tolerate that. We only want nice thoughts. We only want good thoughts. Well, that's not the point of free speech. The point of free speech is not to protect you from. The point of free speech is not to be there just to exist, so you can just say things that the establishment, the status quo, the government, the power structures already agree with and you agree with. It's there so people can say things that you don't agree with, so that you can say, well, I wonder why this person thinks that, because they're interpreting their subjective experience from their version of reality, and they're disseminating their truth, and they're disseminating information as they see it, and everybody has a right. This country was birthed out of that right to freely express yourself and to say things that you don't agree with, so that we can find common ground, so that we can use the greatest gift of the gods to humanity, which is language, which Terence McKenna calls small mouth noises, which are basically meat skin, motions of telepathy. We think these things in our minds, and then they come out of our mouth by making noises, by making sound, and sound is the great unifier of the universe. It's the sound of all existence into being. The very sound of Om, that ancient sound that Buddhist meditators and many other practitioners use is the origin of existence, of life in itself. It encompasses all of the nature of universe. It's the deep, the guttural, the coming, the going, the high, the low, the pitch of existence itself. Sound, vibration, energy. This is what our powers are, if you want to call that. As human beings, we have these magnificent minds that can ponder the infinite, that could come up with the greatest sorts of ideas and opinions and thoughts. And one of those ideas and opinions and thoughts was that, hey, maybe we can have a geographical location on this planet that allows for diversity. And that was America. Diversity and freedom. And the most important diversity of all, the diversity of thought, the diversity of opinion, the diversity to be able to say what you want and discuss it in a public forum with others, so you can calibrate to truth, so you can come to common terms. When you eliminate the ability to think and to speak what you feel to be true, or what you feel to be right, or to express yourself in any way, to express your opinion, then you are limited to taking forceful action. And that is primitive and barbaric and savage. When we eliminate language, the more and more we eliminate language, the more we regress, the more we go back into the caves and we start clubbing each other over the heads. But the more and more we advance to a society which allows open discourse in every possible way, that's where we have a rational, intelligent society that honors and respects the individual human experience and upholds the dignity of the individual and the individual's right to communicate their human experience as they see fit with others in a rational, intelligent way, in a way that involves debate and discourse and dissent. And that is our greatest gift as human beings. That is how we build the world. That is how we create the world, is by getting together, making these small mouth noises from sound vibrations that then manifest reality in front of us. We the Enlightenment, the American Revolution, like all of these, the greatest ideas of all time have come from being able to express yourself. And we've already seen in our history, we've already seen people who have tried to express themselves and tried to give their opinions and their thoughts about things and have suffered greatly. Giordano Bruno was burned at the stake for suggesting that the earth wasn't the center of the universe, but in fact the sun was, and other things like this. There's been witch hunts throughout all of history. The Eleusinian mysteries of ancient Greece was shut down, was raided and ransacked and destroyed by the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church held the seat of power in that era, and they could not tolerate differing opinions that introduce people into new ways of thought that create new forms of language, where new ideas were birthed and people could exchange those ideas, and we could create and collaborate to build new things together to increase human productivity, happiness, and prosperity. And that is the fight that has been going on throughout all of history, is the fight for freedom against tyranny. And if you don't think so, that is you just have to look back throughout history. And when my greatest concern is the people that are willing to accept this sort of behavior. The people that are willing to go along with this sort of behavior because they feel that they are being manipulated. Their emotional heartstrings are being pulled. And like I said, we have seen this happen all throughout history. Empires sailed across seas and conquered indigenous populations, murdered and enslaved them, tortured and raped and pillaged because their ideas were different. And if we're limiting speech, if we're limiting freedom of speech and expression, then we are limiting humanity's ability to live a peaceful, collaborative life with respect to the individual, with respect to the dignity of the individual, and therefore we are headed back to the Stone Age, and we are not progressing. And this is dangerous. This has implications for everybody in the psychedelic community as well, because, as Terence McKenna says in the beginning of this show, that psychedelics can alter your perception and change, decondition you from the cultural indoctrination that you have been programmed your entire life. And it washes you away of all this bullshit that has been programmed into you, and you get to this feeling of truth and realness. And that's where we want to be. We want to be living in a world where we are able to listen to people, respectfully disagree, and not necessarily give into emotional outbursts of anger and rage and fear and feel the need to shut people down, but allow for rational, intelligent discourse. And not only that, but allow people to go their separate ways and respect people, to want to choose to live in a version of reality that maybe that we don't agree with, but that a large enough group of people do voluntarily agree with, and they can get together and they can live out the dreams of their imaginations together in a free and open way, as long as they're not causing any physical harm to anybody and they're not infringing on anybody else's rights to do that very same thing. And if we can get to that place, then we will be living in a truly a respectable world, a world worth that lives up to the highest standard of the human good, to our highest versions of ourselves. And we are not there. We are not there. We can be there, but we are not there. So right now what we have is this war. There's a war going on right now. This is a major, major war. And I've been saying this for the longest time on this show and on my old show, Part of the Problem, that the next 9/11 will be a cyber 9/11. It will be a cyber terrorist event. And I think I may have, I think I had thought that this was coming, that I thought that this had not come yet. But I think it has come. I think it has come in the form of the 2016 election, the Russian hacking story narrative, the WikiLeaks leaks, the thing that everyone seems to forget about, which is the sabotage of the Democratic National Committee and the sabotage of the candidacy of Bernie Sanders. And people seem to forget about that. The Hillary Clinton email thing. And so all of this combined, I think now represents the new 9/11. And the new war on terror is the war on fake news and the war on hate speech. And these are now seen as, this is what this is now. The new war on terror is the war on your minds, the war on human beings' consciousness. And it's scary. It's dangerous, because just like any war, just like any dictator that's rising to power, they do not do it in this evil, outright cartoonish way, this Voldemort, Darth Vader style way. What they do is they come at you with a smiley face. The decision to remove Alex Jones from all these platforms was done under the guise of, for your protection, for your safety. And that will always be the sell. They will always come at you with that, because it's extremely hard to disagree with that. You have to be a person that thinks. And like I said, people don't have time in this society to think. They're working too much. They're too busy. They're inundated with too many stresses because they're living in such a toxic culture that is pressuring the human being to conform to this machine-like state, to this obedient machine-like state where there's no space and time carved out for rational analytical thought, to take time to digest what is actually happening. Everything moves at such a rapid pace, and the 24/7 news cycle, mainstream media, power structure just blasts us in the face with their repetition, and how they want to condition us to what they want us to conform to and to believe. But this is what is going on now. So people are going to be able to be taken out under the guise of hate speech. Hate speech is the new war on terror. And Who's to say that, who's to say what hate speech is? And, I've said this before on the show, and I've made this argument a lot, but, hate speech is, look at what happens in the world today. You look at what the United States military has been doing around the world. What's the Snowden documents revealed? What all of these things. The drone attacks. Weddings that are being bombed. People that are just being taken out by drones based on cell phone data, and we don't even know if it's the right person or not. But we don't care. The United States empire that has 300 military bases all around the world, and we just invade and occupy and topple dictators and kill at will. And this is but don't say things that upset people, right? It's absurd. Hate speech is not a legal classification here. It doesn't make sense. You don't have the right to use government force in order to feel like, people aren't saying nasty things to you. That is what freedom of speech is all about. Freedom of speech is there to protect you from freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is there not to protect you against people that are saying nasty things to you, but to protect you from your ability to then express yourself in the way that you see fit. As soon as you stifle out other people's, I think Christopher Hitchens made this point once. He said, as soon as you stifle out others' ability to say things freely, you in fact hinder your own and hamper your own ability to say those very things. And it reminds me of that poem, it's at first they came. First they came for the communists, but I wasn't a communist. First then they came for the trade unionists, but I wasn't a trade unionist. And then they came for, I think there was something else, I forget. And then it was like, and then they came for me. But by the time they came for me, there was no one left to speak up for me. I did not speak out because I wasn't a communist, and then and then I did not speak out because I wasn't a trade unionist. Well, at first they came for Alex Jones, and I did not speak out because I wasn't an Alex Jones fan. I wasn't a conspiracy theorist, so I didn't speak out. Then they came for people who were talking about psychedelics, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't involved in caring about psychedelics. Then they came for people that were discussing UFOs and ancient civilizations and things like this. Who's to say what constitutes hate speech? Or and who gets to decide? Who gets to decide that? And whoever gets to decide that, who watches the deciders? It's absurd. I think I've mentioned this too on the show before. It's like, what's worse, if you murder someone, or if you murder someone and then you're like, faggot? It doesn't matter. The act of murder is the worst possible thing that you could do. Calling somebody a name, I've said this so many times on the show too. It's like, whatever happened to teaching children, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. We used to have, we used to teach people to have a backbone, to have a spine, to be brave, to be tough, and to, that is how you really. Jordan Peterson makes this point. You don't try and protect people from bad things. You try and make them braver, more courageous. And it's not this false left-right dichotomy, which is bullshit, where, you have on one hand, you say, well, people are triggered and they need to express themselves and they need to be protected from hateful things. So we need to do that. And then the other side is like, they need to toughen up. They're a bunch of pussies. No, it's like, well, yes, all those things are true. We need to have respect for people. Okay. Something upset you, something triggered you. Let's find out why. Let's talk it out. Let's freely talk it out. All right, I think I went a little off there on some things, but yeah, I want to talk about. I think there's this. I want to bring up this Walter Williams, who's a great economist, and he talks about discrimination and freedom of association and expression and free speech. And I'll just read some quotes. I think because I think they're really good. He says, people have the right to engage in discrimination on any basis they want. But you don't have the right to use the government to force other people to concur with you. The true test of whether people believe in the idea of freedom of association doesn't come when you allow people to be free to associate in ways that you think they should. It comes when you allow them to associate in ways that you find despicable. Just like free speech, it doesn't come when the true test of free speech doesn't come when people let others say what they think they should say. The true test of free speech is when people can allow others to say things that offend them. That is the whole point. That is the point. And as I was talking about before, once you limit speech, that in effect limits thought. When you have people questioning themselves and questioning their thoughts and being afraid to express what they think and actually thinking what they think is bad and that they're a bad person for me even having those thoughts, well, then you are creating a world of people who are controlled. I mean, this is mind control. This is how this happens. This is massive mind control. And it's easy. It's easy to do, especially when you have the power and the resources and the capabilities to deploy these psychological operations and these psychological tactics. Again, people talk about, Trump's a buffoon and, the government is just a bunch of knuckleheads and they can't get anything done and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no. There are extremely intelligent people that are pulling the strings behind the scenes in think tanks for months and months on end that then expertly execute their agendas. And because you have to have the people on board in an illusionary democracy. You can't just, that is why this form of governance that we have here in America is so brilliantly done by these people, because people think that they're free. People think we live in a democracy. We don't. We live in a plutocratic oligarchy. Many studies have shown this. I think there was a Princeton study like a couple years ago. Princeton or Oxford or what, you can Google it. But who knows? Maybe you might not be able to find it on Google because maybe Google will start censoring these things, right? That's another thing that, is happening. We live in this unprecedented time right now where we can all, contribute to the historical documentation of our thoughts and feelings of the time in which we're living in. However, if we allow people to be censored, we allow our feelings, expressions, and thoughts to be censored, and then ostensibly to be eliminated, to be banned, to be ghosted, to be shadow banned, you no longer exist. You weren't here. You're erased from the historical timeline because we don't want people to access those things. I think there's a movie, The Giver, or it was a book, The Giver. I mean, there's so many historical examples in real life, and there's so many fiction tales, whether it's Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 or Orwell's 1984 or Animal Farm or Brave New World or Island or The Hunger Games, The Giver, there's so many of these. Star Wars is another great example. There's so many of these movies where there's a tyrannical force, where people are oppressed, where there's this dystopian future, but we see it, but we fail to recognize it when it's actually happening to us in the here and now. And it's because we're not paying attention and we're not awake and we're not aware. And I think also a lot of, by fictionalizing those things, I think a lot of people think, well, that happens in fiction. That's what happens in the movies. And, that's not happening here. They just don't make the connection. They don't make the connection. And it's sad. But it's sad because I know most people are good people. And the reason why I do this show is because I know that I believe in you people. I believe in humanity. I believe in myself and others to live in a happy, joyful, peaceful, productive, prosperous world. I know that's what the average person wants. However, we are allowing psychopaths who are hell-bent on accumulation of goods, resources, and power and control, who are, I would argue that are fearful themselves of mortality and therefore want to live in this technocratic global, utopian system where they can etch their names in the history books and establish themselves as being some kind of form of significance so they don't fade away into the cosmic dust of oblivion. But that's where we're all going anyway. So I would argue that there's a very small group of people who are hell-bent on this ultimate form of power and control. And the average person, most of us, just wants to enjoy our lives. And so I think that this is extremely important for us to understand. And I think that everybody has the capability to understand this because I know everybody wants this. The average person does, So, Alex Jones, like I said, think what you want about him. And, a lot of people have made the, have said that, Apple, Google, YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, they're private companies and they can do whatever they like. And yeah, I suppose that's true. But I don't know. I think that we're living in a much different world today than years ago, where these companies, Facebook and YouTube and Google and Apple, the amount of data they have about me, about you, about everybody. I mean, the amount of things that they have access to. Do you know what that's worth? If you know everything about somebody and you have a map of their every thought that they have, every time you type into Google, what do I do about this rash on my balls? Or, whatever you're typing into Google. And that wasn't a personal example. I was just trying to be funny. Whatever you type into Google, whatever you like on Facebook, who your friends are, where you click, the websites that you visit before you go onto these platforms, the websites that you go on after these platforms. I know I was in the data-driven programmatic advertising industry, where we analyzed the data of people and then tailored our advertisements to target them and to sell them things. They can turn your microphones on and listen to you. There's a software called Alfonso there's Alfonso, there's Samba TV, there's all of these applications, these softwares that, they want to know your location. They want to send you push notifications, all these things. So people know where these companies know everything. They know more about you than you know about yourself. They know more about you than your therapist knows. They know more about you than your parents know. They know every porn website that you've gone on. They know every song that you've listened to. They know everywhere you've traveled or everywhere you've been. They know the amount of time that you've been looking at something. They know where your mouse goes to on the screen. There are heat sensor maps for these things. They know everything. And it's all, it's a combination of things, right? It's like, well, by knowing these things about people, we can better cater to them. We can offer them services that they actually like. And, we can also offer them fun things where they can have fun with their friends and they can share, geotag filters and face filters and wacky things like this. But at the same time, it's also used to sell you advertisements, and it's also used to control you, to predict your behavior, to keep you in a box, to keep you in a bubble, to keep you filtered and screened, so that you only have access to the reality that you're only living in this bubble. And this is extremely powerful to governments. And it's no secret that there's Obama, I think, was the first president that I remember reading an article, something about like Obama's met with Silicon Valley tech executives more than anyone else. And that was I think the beginning of Silicon Valley getting in bed with the presidency was the Obama presidency. I think Obama's Hope and Change campaign in 2008 won an award, the best advertising, the best marketing award. So, we're all being played here. Everybody is being played. We live in this plutocratic, oligarchic system. The rule is for the few and the powerful. These companies do not reflect the will of the people. They do not represent the people. The people are heavily manipulated, indoctrinated, and there is extreme divisiveness that is created. So we are then fighting and arguing with each other rather than focusing on what's really happening here, which is that we are being pushed further and further into a square box of conformity, into the narrow range of allowable opinion and sanctioned thought. And once you are able to get into a person's mind and control what they think, it doesn't come in this way of people control, like, oh, think this or think that, but it comes in a way of you questioning yourself. And you are the ultimate star of the show. You are everything that ever was and will be. You represent everything. If your life isn't your life, then you have no reason to live. If you're living your life for somebody else, if you're thinking somebody else's thoughts, if you're questioning yourself, then you're giving up the human experience. You're giving up what it means to be a human being and to be alive on this planet. And you're giving up your right to be a contributing player in this game of collaboration and productivity and happiness and togetherness. You matter. You're important, and don't let you're the ultimate authority. You. And these people, they want to make it seem like there's some arbiter of truth and goodness and wellness out there that you need to give yourself up to conform to their ideas and to their prepackaged version of reality that they want you to sell. And they say, this is reality. These are the parameters of reality, and don't debate us about this and don't question us about this. If you question the reality that we're offering to you, well, we're going to deem you as being inappropriate. We're going to say that you're expressing hate speech or that you're spreading fake news, and we're going to ostracize you from the community. And biologically speaking, we grew up as hunter-gatherers, and we lived in these small bands of people, and if we couldn't get along, then you were ostracized from the community. When you're ostracized from the community, you essentially experience death, because that means to roam about in the woods without your band of brothers with you and sisters. These people that are in charge of, the Silicon Valley crowd, these tech people, they're really scary because they come with a smiley face and they say, hey, don't be evil. Hey, we're just trying to connect everybody and connect the world. And, maybe that's true. But at the same time, they have the money, the power, the resources, and the data. Your data, which is that is if you have data about people, like I said, you can predict their behavior. If you can predict their behavior, you can control them. You know where they go. You can think before you can think like 10 steps ahead of a person and predict where they're going to go, what they're going to say, what they're going to do. And therefore you can keep them in a rat's maze. And anybody who talks this way, right, will be brandished as a wacko conspiracy theorist. I'm sure some people listening to this might say that. Well, you're just being paranoid. You're being a wacko conspiracy theorist. Well, maybe. But as I mentioned on the show a little while ago, that term conspiracy theorist was invented by the CIA in order to discredit people who are questioning the official narrative of the JFK assassination. And Richard Dolan has brought this like back to my attention. I used to talk about this, but he has sort of emphasized this point as being one to really pay attention to, because there are government documents, there are memos, there are things that we can find, Freedom of Information Act, things like that do reveal these things. Operation Mockingbird, the plan for the CIA infiltrating the media. These things. This is what happens, because in order to have a rule, in order to control and rule people, you need to have them on your side, especially when you bill yourselves as a democracy. So the mainstream media, Silicon Valley tech giants like the ones that banned Alex Jones, the major banks, major corporations, weapons manufacturers, college universities, college campuses, public education schools, Hollywood, the music industry, wherever you have a large group of powerful, rich people, we now live in a world today where we have such a massive empire. The United States government is the largest government that's ever existed in history. We have the most amount of firepower. I mean, we could blow this earth up 1,000 times over. The amount of money that we spend, the amount of weapons that we have deployed, it is a force unlike anything we've ever seen. And when you have a large, monolithic, centralized power like that, one that is aggressive abroad and despotic at home, that will, without a doubt, because it's in its interest to survive. That's, I think Chris Ryan makes this point, and I think I've heard Daniel Pinchbeck, past podcast guest, talk about this. You have these entities that essentially act as these like super organisms, and they have their own agendas. And that agenda is to keep that institution in play. It is the infinite game, right? The finite game is to win the game, to do something, get to point A to B, and accomplish something. But the finite game is to keep kicking the can down the road, keep the ball in the air, keep the volley going. And these systems, that is the natural function of them. And Douglas Rushkoff talks about this as well, where he talks about, we have just entered onto this treadmill of accumulation, and we think that accumulation and growth for growth's sake is progress. And at what point does growth actually harm people? And I would argue that we're in that state right now. We're in a state where these power systems in our world have grown so big that they no longer serve us, that we serve them. We are slaves to them without even knowing it. So when you have this large centralized governmental state-run power, when you have this system of government that is so large, so omnipresent, so omnipotent, it is naturally in their best interest to knock on the door of other powerful people and say, hey, look, let's make a deal. We got this guy, Alex Jones. He's out there. He's saying some things that we don't like. And, government comes together with the media, CNN, other people. What do you think these Bilderberg meetings are about? Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations. I mean, this stuff isn't, like I said, again, conspiracy theorist stuff. I mean, this gets thrown into the category of conspiracy theorists. And when you think of these things as conspiracy theories, you're actually just feeding and propagating that term to what it's intended to do, which is intended to discredit people who are talking about these things, who are actually interested in the truth of what's happening in our world. I remember, I think it was George Carlin that said, if you think that like big, powerful people aren't getting together and making plans, you're an idiot. I mean, think about how you get together and make plans with people in your own life. Hey, you get together with some friends and you decide, let's do this and let's do that. Okay, cool. Now just magnify that on a scale of people who are making billions and trillions of dollars and who are hell-bent on, who are driven to be, like kings in their own right. Back in the day, you just had the king, and he had power, and it was the king and the church, and they just ruled, and that was it. People probably thought it sucked, and maybe a few people spoke out, William Wallace, Braveheart style, but now we actually have one of the greatest gifts that's ever been devised. I mean, this internet, this connection that we have here, the ability to get on this microphone and to say whatever I want. This is the power that they fear. And that's why I say that this is the new 9/11. This is the new war on terror. We're seeing it happen. We're seeing it play out. And they will come after people, and they will say that people are engaging in hate speech, and the people will accept that because people are emotional creatures who are nice people who want to live in a nice world where people are respectable and nice to each other, and they think that if somebody's being hateful, that they need to be taken out and taken away. And it's ironic because they think that if a lot of these people who are like, good, I'm glad Alex Jones is banned, he's engaging in hate speech, right? Well, a lot of these people who, and like, for example, like Antifa or people like that, I remember at the Trump rallies, they would say, Donald Trump engages in hate speech. Donald Trump incites violence. He's hateful. So they would then go there and be violent and be hateful. Now, you can't do that. Your version of hate and violence doesn't supersede the version of hate and violence that you're opposing. You're claiming someone engages in hate and incites violence, and then you are going there and engaging in hate and inciting violence. That is not the way. That is not the way. The way is to intelligently expose what is happening and to have rational, intelligent discourse with other human beings that care about these things. And let the ideas be exposed. Let them be out in the open so people can see how foolish they are or how legitimate they are. And that is, you have to think about it like this, right? I mean, there's a lot of people who haven't gotten banned, like Antifa, right? Because they are, I mean, I guess they're favored by the establishment or whatever. But there's a lot of people that it's only the people that they deem to be a threat to their status quo, and that's what Alex Jones is. Alex Jones, for, like I said, all the wacky stuff he does and how wrong he might be about things, the one thing that he gets right is that there is a globalist power elite that do want to control and dominate the world, and he does oppose that. Now, all the other things that he says that he might get wrong, okay, fine, but they know that he has a huge audience behind him, and so they can take him out and they can say, well, he was engaging in hate speech. And I mean, what hate speech has he engaged in? I mean, I don't know, But if we're not allowed to be vocal and criticize thoughts, ideas, and beliefs, and express those thoughts, ideas, and beliefs, then we're just falling back into the primitive age of witch burnings, and we are going to regress back into the caves. And it's up to us. It really is up to us. It is what we're willing to accept and what we're willing to allow. And I would agree that this is such a massive war that's happening right now because people are being worn down and grinded into submission, because we live in a time right now where there's so much information that it's confusing, it's hectic, it's head spinning. You don't know what's what. All you know is that something sounds wrong and I'm just on that side. And this doesn't sound good, so I'm just on that side because there's too much. This is the confusion, the manipulation, the propaganda, the disinformation, the misinformation, the you name it. There is a whirlwind of shit that's going on. And all you need is for some large, powerful entity to come in and say, we're doing this for your protection and your safety because we stand up for, people who are, we stand against people that are expressing hate. And hate can come in any form. They can deem it like They get to decide, right? So if they set the precedent for Alex Jones, and most people, this is the genius of it. They can say Alex Jones was banned for hate speech. Most people will not look into this. Most people will just say, Alex Jones, who's Alex Jones? Oh yeah, I think I've seen that guy. He yells and he's angry and he's kind of crazy. Oh, and he was banned. Oh, good. He was good. He was terrible anyway. And it's like, oh yeah, ban him. That's fine. But they don't understand that that's not the point. The point isn't that whether you agree or disagree or you think that he was hateful or not hateful. The point is that we, if we want to be considered a society that is reaching for progress and prosperity and human flourishing and happiness, this isn't going to come in the material realm of technological advancements that these sort of globalist crazy people are trying to promote. This comes with an inner dialogue with oneself and a public discourse with our community, connecting with other human beings at a heart and soul level, and letting the ideas and the thoughts and the opinions and the visions that we have in our mind intermingle with others, and do the wonderful dance of language and creativity that has created this great and wonderful world that we have been creating since the birth of the wheel. And this is the birth of the internet. And we're going through maybe a tough time right now. I mean, how long did people stumble around after they invented the wheel until they actually put it on a car and made things move? So, we're in a very, very transformative time right now where the rate of change is happening at such an exponential rate that it's really making people's head spin. But if we keep one fundamental truth in line, and that fundamental truth is that every single person, every single human being on this planet has the God-given innate birthright from the cosmic creator himself or herself, that you are allowed to express how you feel, what you think. You're allowed to interpret your reality through all the sensory input data that one can experience in this human life, and then you can disseminate that and disperse that and discuss that and debate that. And only an intelligent, loving, non-fearful society will allow that to happen. But we live in this world right now where we are dominated by fearful people that are hell-bent on control, power, and the accumulation of wealth and resources. And wealth in a material sense, not wealth in a spiritual sense, because that's where the true wealth lies. The true human progress is the human progress of the heart. The human progress of the heart, the mind, and the spirit. That is being neglected. And that is why I am so interested in psychedelics, and especially psychedelics used in a ritual ceremonial setting, is because it brings people together. It makes us remember who and what we are and what we're capable of and what's true and what's important in this world. And if we use hate and if we let fear get to us to ban things that we don't like, then we are no better than the people that we say that we are trying to get rid of in order to make the world better anyway. If that makes sense, right? I mean, we cannot engage in hateful, fearful actions in order to keep ourselves protected and safe. When we do that, we sacrifice the most fundamental thing, which is liberty. And if people can start saying that there's fake news and there's hate speech and all this stuff, then they can come after other people out there that are talking about things similar to what I talk about on this show, right? I mean, they could say that I'm dissenting against the government, that I am inciting hate, and they can come and they can shut me down, and that is not what I'm doing. I am expressing myself out of love for humanity, out of the beautiful nature that every human being was born, into this pool of infinite creation, that we can work together in a peaceful manner to achieve our highest goods, and collaborate with each other to create something bigger than ourselves that is beautiful, that is the true representation of what is capable from the human collective, getting together and utilizing our creator skills. We are created in the image of God, right? And we are, in a sense, creator gods ourselves. I think I played this talk by Steve Jobs. He talked about once you realize that you can actually influence reality, that you can think things, like everything that you see around you, this cup, this table, this microphone, was thought of by somebody. Somebody had a thought. It only existed as a thought in their mind, and it was brought to reality. It was manifested. It was created by time. We are all magicians and wizards that can wave a magic wand and make things appear. It just takes the time to do that, right? It's not like you just poof out of thin air. But what I'm saying is, you go from idea, conception, visualization in your mind. You collaborate with other people because they have their own minds. We all have our own, subjective views and thoughts and visualizations, and then we merge those together with each other, and we manifest something that comes out. It's like magic, and it's mediated by time. We exert inertia and we apply a little bit of force into the world to mix our skills and with our labor, and then something births out of that. We give birth. And one of the greatest things that was given birth was this idea that we could have a country, that we could have a geographical location where people could come together, no matter what race and what creed and what religion and what culture, the diversity of human beings from across the globe coming together and bringing together all of their original and unique cultural beliefs and morals and virtues and philosophies and thoughts, and coming together and melting together into this amazing, sewing this amazing like web of this blanket, this quilt of ideas that are mashing together and creating something new. And that idea was to have a place that upheld that freedom, that everybody believes that we should uphold that freedom. No matter what, no matter if somebody says something that offends you, no matter if somebody says something that hurts your feelings, no matter if somebody says something that criticizes your religion, that those ideas need to be exposed, because that's how we can tell what are the good ideas and what are the bad ideas, and that's how we can, get together to create something. When we restrict those things, we restrict creation, we restrict progress. And that's what this country was founded on. And we need to uphold that. The diversity is what matters. Diversity of ideas. And I think it was Kierkegaard that said, truth always rests with the minority, because the majority tend to be, a group of just mindless people going with whatever is like the popular idea that's being pushed at the time. But this stuff that I'm talking about here is what's important in our world. This is because once you start going down the path of saying, well, let's ban this person, let's not allow this person, let's say this is bad, let's say this is good, then we wind up in a Ministry of Truth, Orwell society, where the entire history of humanity is being rewritten to conform to the views of the powerful people that are in charge. And we live in this amazing technological time right now. And these people who want to be the arbiters of truth, who want to form the parameters of what you view as reality, they want that because they will have access to technologies and things that you can't afford. And the separation of power will really be like it was back in the days of the kings, of the monarchs of kings. These people have technology so advanced that you couldn't possibly have access to, and all these big powerful people are in bed with each other. And the average person, maybe there's some people there that want to do good and they want to serve people, but the overall structures themselves are not formulated to serve people. And so again, I just want to address, like, people are saying, well, these are private companies, they could do whatever they want, right? They could censor, they could ban whoever they want. But once if it was done by the government, then that would be trouble. Well, it is being done by the government because, like I said, the government, when you have these large monolithic companies that are near monopolies, the government is influencing them, and they are influencing the government. There's a revolving door between Wall Street, Silicon Valley, weapons manufacturers, higher education. These people are influencers, and they do the bidding of the status quo. If they play by the state establishment, if you play by their rules, they will reward you. And most people will sacrifice their moral integrity to do that, because at the end of the day, they're getting handsomely rewarded for it. So all this stuff is happening, and we could be heading down a very dangerous road. And I think about, like, how do we get access to information? How do we know what's going on? And it's because there's people out there like me. There's people out there like the millions of other people out there that are creating their own content, that have their own blogs, that have their own YouTube series, that have their own Instagrams, and have their own podcasts and shows that they started up because of the passion that they had for knowledge and the curiosity they had, and whatever they wanted to share their unique talents and gifts with people. Maybe they spend hours grueling and doing research and coming up with, digging through documents and uncovering the truth of history and all this stuff, just to tell it to the people, to spread it to people. And I fear that we could one day live in a day where this is all banned, and it'll be banned under the guise of, under the friendly face of we're protecting you for your own protection. So this is why this is really important. This is very, very important. I think that's pretty much all I want to say about this. I can't emphasize how important free speech is, and how it's just important that we uphold that. And when we hear people that we disagree with, and we hear people that are speaking in hurtful ways or offensive ways, I think it's important to have an intelligent and rational debate and a discourse about that. And what's happening right now is that people are being encouraged. Especially this is how your children are being brainwashed by schools and these radical leftist people who, I grew up and thought I was on the left. I grew up and I was a liberal in a New York blue state Democrat. I thought the Republicans were the bad people and the Democrats were the good people. And it's just a false dichotomy. It's just bullshit. It's establishment authoritarian versus free people. It's do you believe in total liberty for every single individual human being so they can express the truth of themselves and their thoughts and their existence and as they subjectively see it, or do you believe in an authoritarian dictator that controls people's minds through expertly crafted manipulation through various sources of institutions that are in bed with these powers? It's do you want to be on the side of freedom, or do you want to be on the side of tyranny? And people, again, I think I want to end this show by just saying that we must fight for freedom and diversity of ideas and opinions and thoughts. Freedom to say whatever we wish, as long as we're not physically causing harm to anybody, as long as we're not infringing upon anybody's rights to do the same. We must uphold these, because if we don't uphold these great ideas that were birthed out of years of human beings pontificating and articulating and collaborating as we moved out of the caves into the world, and we started to collaborate and communicate and build reality through language, through small mouth noises and sound vibrations with each other. If we do not uphold these ideas, we smack our ancestors in the face. We spit on the graves of the people that have come before us, who have fought and died, who have shed blood, who have sacrificed for an ounce of freedom. Every single totalitarian regime, every single the people that have lived under oppressive fascist dictators and communist dictators, and people who have been subject to slavery and horrible, terrible things. If we do not uphold every single person, no matter what they're saying, if we do not uphold the right for them to say it, if we don't believe in that idea anymore, then we do a great disservice. We do a tragic horror show to our ancestors who came before us, who sacrificed so much and who bled for our freedoms. And it's a tragedy. It's a total tragedy. And I might be being, you might think I'm being a bit dramatic, but that's the truth. That is the truth. Just think about how many people have sacrificed crossing borders, hiding, stowing away on ships, running from plantations, hiding in attics and surviving, prison camps and all these things. And just because, we live in a world where it's a little bit harder to decipher what's going on because the level of sophistication, the level of advanced technology and advanced propaganda techniques, it's hard to decipher. We live in an invisible, fascist world. It's invisible, but it's there. And it's an oligarchy ruled by the powerful people. And like George Carlin said, it's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I ain't in it. But the real hope, the real opportunity here is for the freedom to allow people to say and express themselves in whichever way they want. So we have a diversity of ideas and opinions, so that the average person can then search around for what resonates with them, so that they can look at multiple sources of information and they can decide for themselves what feels right, what feels true, and they can research and they can measure those things, and we can calibrate and articulate our reality to better suit our needs. And that people are aware of what is going on at these powerful levels that Facebook, Google, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, the United States government, Bank of America, Chase, Lehman, whatever, these companies, that they don't have your best interests in mind. They are not benevolent. They are interested in growing and accumulating and controlling. And that's it. That's the truth. You're gonna pay for that. And the sad thing is that the great thing is that human beings are adaptable. It's what's helped us survive. But the sad thing is that as this stuff plays out, it plays out in these little, steps incrementally. The frog boiling in water. You don't just turn it up and then the frog jumps out. You slowly increase the heat, and the frog, before you know, he doesn't even know he's getting boiled. So what happens is these changes happen over time. And time is one of the greatest things, because these powerful people in our society, they use time to their advantage, right? A story comes out, it goes on repeat, it conditions people to accept it and believe it, and then it goes away. And then they hope that enough time passes where they can get away with their crimes. They can get away with their tactics and what they do. Because then when the truth is revealed, what happens is later on in the future, less people care about it. The people that were alive, that they were affected by it, it doesn't even they don't care. It's we could talk about how, Operation Mockingbird right now, and how, or we could talk about, the JFK assassination, or MLK, or these types of people, and people are generally like, oh yeah, okay. It's not as impactful. When the truth is revealed later on in time, it's not as impactful. right? I mean, you could talk about anything. If it happened 5,000 years ago, what significance does it have for your life now? So it's really important that we act now, in the here and now, in this time period now, so we prevent our own sort of enslavement throughout this process. And then, as time goes on, before we know it, it's like, whoa, shit, we're boiling in water. But I want to also end on a good note. The good note is that I know that there's a lot of people out there, people that listen to this show, people that are attending the lectures of Jordan Peterson, people that are, discovering great authors and writers and people that go on websites like Brain Pickings by Maria Popova or whatever it is, whatever. I just gave a few examples, but I know that there's many people out there that are hungry and thirsty for information, for truth, for wisdom, for knowledge, and that'll never end. That'll never end. Human beings will always find a way. And again, it doesn't matter if you agree with Alex Jones or not, and I don't agree with him. I think that he's crazy and mostly wrong about a lot of things, but that's not the point. The point is that it would be nice if we could live in a society where people actually believed in everybody's right to freedom of speech and to freely express themselves, and to let the people decide who's crazy, who's true, who's false, and who's wrong, and not let these mandates and dictates come from these large power structures, these large oligarchic entities that are being controlled and ruled, that we're being controlled and ruled over by. And as long as we're able to keep these ideas in mind and believe in these things, and gather together in communities where we're expressing love and thoughtfulness and openness, then we have a chance. We have a chance. We have a chance at creating a better world. And I think everybody deep down their hearts wants to create a better world, but it starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with us as individuals. Making sure that what we're consuming, what we're putting into our bodies is contributing to our health and our wealth and our progress. And then we're thinking clearly, and we're thinking straight, and we can see things as they truly are. And once we can see things as they truly are, then we can start to build a better foundation. We can build a better model that makes this old model obsolete. But we can't do it without believing in freedom. We can't do it without believing in liberty. And again, you might think that somebody is hateful. You might think that somebody is mean. You might think that somebody upsets you or offends you, and that's fine. You don't have to pay attention to that person. You can criticize that person. You can you can offer opinions about that person. You can combat that person through putting out your own material. But you do not have the right to use force to get rid of that person. And that's what we've seen. We've seen the government here, totally in cahoots in a coordinated effort with Apple. This stuff all happened at once. A coordinated effort with Silicon Valley, which is the new Wall Street, to attack Alex Jones and take him down because he poses a threat to the status quo and to the established powers. He was a major dissenting voice in the last, and he's always been, but he's really risen to popularity in the last couple of years, and they just can't have that. They can't stand that. So they need to say that he's hateful, and most people who aren't paying attention just see him as an angry guy who's a bit crazy and think that it's okay to ban him because of he's this particular person. But it's not okay. It's not okay. And anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say. I think I've repeated myself a couple times, and I apologize for that, but I do care deeply about this issue. This podcast is about cognitive liberty. This podcast is about total liberty of the human being and the human spirit, and I talk about this because I believe in the good nature and decency of the average person that wants to live in a respectful, peaceful world where we're happy, productive, and collaborate with each other to create amazing things together. That's all I have to say. So I hope you guys enjoyed this sort of bonus episode here. If you think that I maybe left anything out or got something wrong, please message me. Message me on Facebook. Message me. Comment on the Mycadelic page. I will be in the Amazon jungle. I will be out here, but I will be releasing podcasts out here. And yeah, I love to hear your feedback. I love to hear your thoughts and opinions. I am thinking about creating a WhatsApp message group. So we, the supporting members of the show, for the people that contribute on Patreon, we can be in a WhatsApp group, and we can share voice messages with each other. We can have video calls with each other, and we can have group text messages with each other through WhatsApp. So I'm thinking about doing that. I think that would be really cool. I also want to create a Facebook page. I think I'm going to have a page for a group. I have a Mycadelic page, but it will have a group, so we can have group discussions in there as well. And once again, that'll be for contributing members of the Mycadelic Patreon account. And if you want to be a contributing member, if you want to have access to furthering the conversation and extending the dialogue between us, this community here, you guys, listeners, and myself, you can go on to patreon.com/MikeBrank, BRANC, and you can donate as little as $1 a month. You can donate $2 a month, $3, $50, $100, whatever you want. Being a contributing, supporting listener to this show will get access to those things that I'm going to be creating very soon. And if you like what I'm saying here, just share the show. Post it on your Facebook, post it on Twitter, retweet it, just tell more people about it. And if you really want to go a step further, like I said, you can go into Patreon and you can donate $1, as little as $1 a month. And you can help out the show a lot by pushing us higher in the Apple Podcasts, iTunes rankings. Hopefully this episode won't get banned or censored. Very scary to think that could be a possibility. We have 111 5-star reviews, which is just, I love everybody that goes and does that. It's just so phenomenal to read what you guys write, and the fact that you would take the time out of your day to do that. So if you do get value of the show, you can also help out by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, whatever they're called now. And, I love each and every one of you extremely. I have deep care and compassion for humanity, and that is why I do what I do. I hope that this episode was valuable, and I hope I made some good points. And like I said, if I didn't, please message me and let me know. And you can message me with any thought, with any idea. I'm open to it all. You can also contact me on my website as well by going there and contacting me on the contact form. Okay, thank you so much. I'm headed to the jungle. Next time I'll be talking to you about my ayahuasca experiences down in the jungle in Peru. I love you again. Thank you so much. Peace, freedom, liberty.